Call to order the whatever date today is, Thursday, 18th of November, Planning Commission meeting. It is 6:31, and with us this evening, Travis Ney, Lisa Milkevich, Jake Pearson, myself, Ned Hacker. I'm be standing in as the chair, sitting in as the chair this evening, and excused are Maren Patterson, Sue Wilson, and apparently right now, Jeremy Lowry. So still have quorum, so that's good. Couple of housekeeping rules before we start is I'd ask all of you to turn your communication devices off if you have those, and to respect the people in the meeting as far as if you do get a telephone call or have a sidebar discussion, to please take that out to the hallway. And during public comment, I'd ask that you take 3 minutes to give your public comment. If you are representing an organization, a neighborhood, we can grant you 5 minutes. And with that, we'll move into our agenda items. So first agenda item is approval of our meeting minutes from October 21st. And I'd ask the planning commissioners if you had opportunity to read those minutes and look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the October 21st, 2021 minutes as submitted.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nope, so that's good. Agenda item number 2 is conflict of interest. Do any commissioners have conflict of interest for any of the agenda items this evening?
No.
And item 3 are findings of fact, of which we don't have any. So moving on to item number 4, which is a conditional use permit. And conditional use permit to allow construction of a new 2-story medical office building on the property 5775 South Fashion Boulevard. And is applicant for that project here this evening? All right, good. We'll have you come up a little later. And Jared Hall is going to give us a staff report.
Thank you. As you mentioned, this is an application for a new medical office building in the GO zone. The property is the north part of what has traditionally looked like a parking lot attached to this medical building existing right here, just across the street from the northeast sections of the campus of Tosh on Fashion Boulevard. It is in the GO zone, as I mentioned, and one of the reasons that it's before the Planning Commission tonight is that new construction and new site plans in the GO zone require the Planning Commission's approval under conditional use permit review. So it is, as we said, in the GO zone, and it's got a lot of residential behind it and to the north of it, and then again the Tosh campus to the west. We are looking at a site plan for a new building. There is a basement level and then a ground floor and a second floor. We'll look at those floor plans in just a moment. 2 entrances, one that already exists and another here that will be shared with the building to the south. That is that's part of the consideration tonight we want to talk about as well, to do with the parking. The building is for medical offices. The parking lot, as we mentioned, this is turned a little bit differently so you can see the south building here, and the new building will go in this area on this lot. The parking on the south will be restriped in conjunction with the striping and the development of the new parking lot on the north. And together, both buildings together will require 162 parking spaces based on their square footage, and the 2 parking lots combined will provide 172 parking spaces between the 2 buildings. They are jointly shared. There's agreements to share parking and access between both buildings. So those main concerns that we had when we initially started talking to the applicants about this a while ago have been dealt with. The landscaping for the property, this is a new building, so it requires the buffer landscaping along Fashion Boulevard. The building is located up along Fashion Boulevard, which we like. It puts the parking to the rear, puts some space between the building and the residential properties to the east, and allows for a better street presentation as well. So we're happy with that, that they've chosen not to put the parking in front of the building on Fashion Boulevard and rather the other way around. We've been through the landscaping plans. They do meet our requirements for numbers of trees and shrubs. They exceed those as well as we look at Fashion Boulevard. There's a buffer landscaping that's required as well, and we'll talk about that just a little more in a moment. Along the east side, where it's adjacent to residential, must be buffered with at least 10 feet of landscaping and the 6-foot masonry wall. Talking to the neighbors to the east and looking at that situation and the proximity of the building, because the land does narrow at this point. The building is kept a long ways away from them. There's a lot of parking between, but we are still recommending as staff that we increase that 6-foot masonry wall to an 8-foot masonry wall, just to help that buffer be more significant. I mentioned that this is basically a basement and 2 stories. The floor plans are here. There's a lot of circulation space in these. So there's some patient rooms and some exam rooms, et cetera, but there's a lot of circulation and lobby and open spaces in these floor plans. Entrances to the building on the north and south. They do kind of face the parking lots, but the building still feels oriented toward Fashion Place or Fashion Boulevard, which we appreciate as a staff. Some elevations that you can look at there. A lot of glass in some significant places that helps that feel connected to that street frontage along Fashion Boulevard. Some renderings of the building as well. This is from Fashion Boulevard looking at the property. From that side as you enter on the south, the rear parking lot area, and then the north side of the building where you can see this access from Fashion Boulevard as well. One other thing I wanted to mention just at this stage, because it's a good visual of this crossing of this access as it comes out onto Fashion Boulevard. It's a heavily trafficked sidewalk and a lot of children use it. Speaking with folks in the neighborhood and some of our own observations, we're asking that the Planning Commission consider a condition of approval that would require these to be raised or done with different paving material, something to delineate them more fully so that there's good recognition of drivers coming in and out from Fashion Boulevard and from the parking lot, that there's going to be children and people crossing that sidewalk a lot. So that's this is just a good illustration of why that's important. There's this section to cross, and we'd like that to be very well identified or raised.
Mr. Hall, since we're talking about that, can we, I mentioned in the meeting earlier, the turn radiuses of the curb there seem awfully wide, considering that they are in the middle of a school crosswalk. So could we have the city engineer take a look at that and see if we can maybe tighten those radiuses a little bit? Yes,
and I think that's a great thought. We'd like to ask Trey's office, Trey or Carlos, I guess at this point, to look at that during building permit. And if we can tighten those up to increase the safety of pedestrians, we'd love to do that.
Right.
Absolutely. With that, if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those at this time. We did make the finding that this is an appropriate use in the GO zone. It's allowed with conditional use permit approval. It's consistent with our objectives for the general plan. It supports that hospital campus, that Tosh campus, and it's a good use of that property. And with conditions, it can meet the requirements of the ordinance. We are recommending approval of the conditional use permit to allow it with these conditions. And most of those we've discussed during the presentation. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time. Thank you.
Podium and state your name and your address for the record, please.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Justin Hall. My current work address is 5770 South, 250 East in Murray. I'm a local physician. I do spine surgery, and I have there are about 6 of us in the group, 6 physicians and some mid-level providers. And frankly, we've just outgrown our space. We currently have space on the Tosh campus, and so we just need a little more space and want to kind of design it the way that would suit our needs best. So this is a great option, especially since there's, as you probably know, we don't have the map up there anymore, but right across the street literally is a new surgery center that's going to be built by Intermountain Healthcare, and we'll be working there and doing a lot of cases. So this is actually closer than our current office, so it's very, very convenient. And we'll be seeing patients there. We won't be doing any surgery or anything on site, just seeing patients. And
have you had an opportunity to review these conditions
I have.
of approval? Will you be able to comply with them?
Absolutely.
Okay. Anything else that you'd like to add to the record for
No, thank you.
this project? All right. Well, thank you very much. Okay. So we'll open up this project for this agenda item for public comment. Yep. Just you come to the podium, state your name and your address for the record.
Hi, I'm Candace Penrod. I live at 354 East Bridal Walk Lane, and my property is adjacent to this project. And so it's been really concerning to me, but I want to just publicly thank Jared Hall, who's been very kind to help address my concerns. So I really appreciated the addressing the school children. There are a lot of children that walk from the neighborhood and from the apartments that are just on the other side of Fashion Boulevard every day. And they walk through our neighborhood, and I have been very concerned about adding traffic there. So I really appreciate those concerns were addressed. I'm very concerned about the parking situation. As I look outside every day, and either coming or going, or during the summer when I'm home from work, whatever, it's a busy parking lot and there's a lot of people there. So I do like the considerations that have been taken for the amount of cars. I'm super concerned because at times there is an LDS building in my neighborhood that's not too far from my home. And people have a tendency to park up and down our streets when that gets, overflows. And so I'm really concerned about just having enough parking spaces. So I appreciate you addressing that. And I would also, I just have a question about my property line. So if you go and you look from the back side, so if you're standing in the parking lot and you look at the two properties that are right up there, there is a mismatch in the fence. And I am not the original property owner, but I've been told that my property fence that's on the line is not actually on my property line. It actually veered off my line. So I would like to request having a surveyor come. And before we put up a new masonry wall, I'd also like some clarification. As I already have a masonry wall there, is my wall going to be removed? Or do you put a double wall? I don't know what all that is. And so if someone could explain that to me, I'd really appreciate that. I was concerned about my mature trees that are right there on the property line. And Jared assured me that that was something that Murray City was really cognizant about. So anyway, I really appreciate it. I'm feeling much better about the project. I'm feeling very confident that we can work this out, but I would very much like to request a surveyor, someone to come and figure out what's going on with our property line in the back. And then if we can figure out what's happening with the wall, are we going to take down the existing wall that's there? My neighbor adjacent has a wooden fence. And so I'm just curious about what's going to happen there. If anyone has any information, I'd appreciate it. Thank you for letting me ask my questions.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is there anybody else in the audience here that has comments? So do we get any comments from others or other streaming comments during the meeting?
Yes, we did get one email late this afternoon from Rebecca Williams. Dear Planning Commission, since I'm not able to attend the meeting this evening, I'm hoping to express my concerns through this email. My office, Great Expectations Birth Care, is the closest to the proposed new building. Many of my maternity clients park in spots which will no longer be available. I'm very concerned with the loss of the parking from both a quality and quantity point of view. They will have to walk farther, many with a cluster of little kids and a baby in a car seat. During construction, not only will the parking lot be torn up by workers, equipment, and building supplies, will limit the parking. The building plan appears to have landscaping along the neighbor's wall, which will impact snow removal and will lose parking spots. In the building, the new building will add congestion and complexity to an area already busy with school crossing, which heavily impacts our parking lot. How many parking stalls will be lost, and how many parking stalls does the new building need? With this shared lot? Sincerely, Rebecca Williams.
Any others? Any other comments? All right. Any others in the audience, please? If you would please state your name and give your address for the record.
My name is Jason Neal, and I'm in that same building as well, the existing 5801 South Fashion Boulevard. I'm in Suite 290. And yeah, as an owner there, and I'm also on the board. And so we do have that shared parking lot. So I guess speaking as an owner and also on behalf of Mid Valley Medical Board, our biggest concern is the parking. I mean, we welcome, you know, the construction. But our biggest concern is making sure that we do have enough parking. There are days right now that parking lot is pretty full. I mean, with no existing building. So I guess my only, or my biggest concern is making sure that we've got the right allocated parking stalls, you know, based on Murray Code and for a medical use building. And then I guess this has already been addressed, but you know, there is concern just with the kids and the traffic. We have all sorts of people driving in and out of that parking lot, some elderly, and we've had a few even, you know, hit our building where they've overshot their handicap parking. So I guess my only concern is, you know, just safety with making sure there's enough visibility, you know, as people are coming in and out of this parking lot, those kids that use that sidewalk, that there's enough visibility there. But those would be my concerns. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? All right, I'll close public comment period and bring it back to the commissioners for any discussion. And Jared, you want to answer a few questions?
Yeah, let me just, if you don't mind, I could speak to just a couple of quick things. And so in terms of the survey and the line there with the wall, two things about the wall. There is the section that's wood would need to be replaced with the new masonry wall. That's for certain. The existing wall that's 6 feet tall could have additional block placed on top of it and a new cap, depending on the footings that are there. And there's ways to find out if that'll hold the new weight or not. So it could be that the wall could stay. And then in addition to that, you'll notice from your staff reports, I didn't include it in the slides, but there's been grading and drainage preliminary survey work done, some civil engineering done. When that parking lot, it needs to continue to drain the way it has drained. With new construction, that will mean that survey crews will have to be out there when it's being shot and repaved or restriped to make sure that grading all still happens. So my point is that there'll be surveys available. There'll be surveyors available. We could easily make sure that line's in the right place. Which brings me to the last part of that, where if the line's not in the right place, there are a couple of ways that can be addressed between the property owners. We can do boundary adjustments. There's lots of things we could do to keep it where it is if that's possible, or move it if it needs to be moved, but that can be up to the owners. There's not enough difference in it as I looked at it in real time. What do you call that? In real life? I don't remember. The pandemic screwed me up for that. As I looked at it in person, that's the word I'm looking for. There's not enough of a difference that it would foul up the parking or the arrangement of the site, even if it needs to be moved. So it could be just up to the owners to decide how they want to arrange that, or if it needs to be adjusted at all. In terms of the parking, that was our concern all along as well, and we were heartened to see the numbers that they kept the new building to a size that would not impact the numbers that are required. And just as a point of interest, medical offices in Murray do require more parking than other offices. General offices are 1 space to 250 square feet of net usable. Medical offices are slightly higher at 1 space to 200 square feet of net usable space. So it should be parked all right. Yeah, that's about what I had. So any other questions?
Do you want to say anything about the trees?
Sure. Yeah, there's lots of good. We have an ordinance that says that any development we do should avoid the unnecessary destruction of mature trees. The trees appear to be on Mrs. Penrod's property, so all we really need to worry about is if we have to install new footings for a wall, that those footings be done in a way that doesn't damage the roots of the tree. They've survived this long. They're nice big trees. They've got 20 or 30 years of growth. I'm not worried about them. I think they're going to be okay. But I just want that to be something that the construction crews are cognizant of it, that they don't stack a bunch of equipment on that part of the buffer that's over the root system on that side of the wall, et cetera, during construction. And it's easy to do just to avoid that, but it has to be called out so that they don't do it.
So from what you're saying, maybe possibly the best way to address that is for the neighbor and the builder that just keep talking to each other, make sure it's on everybody's radar. That's
exactly right. As far and then us during building permit phase during construction, we'll make sure that any steps that need to be taken can be taken. They're nothing drastic. It's just where you stack things and how deep you go for footings.
Any other questions? Discussion?
Thank
you. Okay, I'll look for a motion regarding this agenda item.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we approve a conditional use permit to allow the construction of the proposed medical office building for the Spine Institute on the property located at 5775 South Fashion Boulevard, subject to conditions 1 through 9.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And is there any other discussion? All right, Jared, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Milkevich.
Yes.
Pearson.
Yes.
Mr. Nay.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Well, congratulations, and look forward to having your building go up. All right. Next agenda item is number 5, a subdivision review. This is Bullion Place final subdivision and planned unit development approval for the property 935 West Bullion Street. And applicant is here, I think, yes. And Susan Nixon is going to give us a staff report.
Thank you. Yes, this application has been submitted by Mr. Brodsky from Hamlet Development for the property at 935 West Bullion Street. You've seen this property a few times before. In June of this year, the City Council changed the zoning from agricultural A1 to the northern half to be R16 and the southern half to be RM15. Also then in September, on September 2nd, the Planning Commission approved a preliminary PUD and subdivision approval. And now he has submitted for final subdivision approval. Not much has changed since the original preliminary, but there has been a few things just fine-tuned. And but I'll just kind of go over and give you an overview, if that's okay. And please stop me if you have any questions. These are just some current photos of the existing site. It currently has satellites on it. It was formerly the U.S. satellite property. And you can see there's satellites on it. And then the west part of it, there is an open field, and there is a big change in grade there where there's a fence kind of up, actually this an upper right corner. So anyway, so it will be a big improvement. This is just the basic layout with Bullion Street. You can see there's a couple of looped roads to the south. And one thing I want to point out at this point is to the west of the development, there is a Rocky Mountain Power property, big right of way. That provides a natural buffer from any residents to the neighbors to the west. And then there is also that right of way wraps around this development and continues over to the south. So there's an additional buffer on the south side of the development. So the Bullion Place subdivision is a total of 74 units. There are 20 single-family homes on the north half and 54 townhomes on the south half, basically. There is a looped road off of Bullion Street that will be called Bellshield Drive. That is a public road. It meets the public road standards of 49-foot right-of-way. Off of that, there will be a looped private road called Colburn Way that will serve the 54 townhomes. And then off of the private road, there will be private drives or driveways, I guess, that will serve the individual units on the south end of the development. This is just a basic footprint showing the setbacks, single-family homes on the north. The R16, let me back up. Plan unit developments allow the developer the flexibility to modify the setbacks for single family or the lots. And as long as the overall density is met by the underlying zoning, then he has that flexibility to vary a little bit. Also, in the R16 zone, he does have the flexibility to change the lot sizes slightly, as long as the average of the lots average 6,000 square feet, which is the underlying zoning minimum requirement. All the homes in the R16 zone meet the setbacks, setback requirements, and actually exceed the front setback for the homes along Bullion Street. They are about a 30-foot setback, where 25 is the minimum. And the reason for doing that, they're again talking about trees. There are some very large mature trees along Bullion Street, which they would like to try to preserve if possible. And so that way they've kind of brought back the setbacks a little more to help accomplish that. This is just a schematic of the roadway. The top one is for the public road, which is the Bell Shill. And then the middle one is the Colburn Way, which is the private road. And then the bottom one is for the private drive accesses to the individual units on the south end. And those do meet specifications for the public, and then the private has been also reviewed by Engineering and Public Works, and they are comfortable with the proposal. Plan unit development's part of the requirement is that the developers submit color schemes and materials for the homes. And they have provided the color schemes, which you will see there. They have black roofs and then basic color schemes, but then they're highlighted with more vivid colors. Show you a couple of schematics. Oh, one of the things I wanted to mention, on the preliminary, some of the townhome units had a 3-unit with triplex. All these units have been changed to 4- and 5-plex units. So that was one of the changes.
But it didn't add any net new units.
Correct. Okay. The total for townhomes is still the same, 54. Thank you. Yeah, there was 55. Actually, they did have to drop one in order to meet the density, the overall density. So while I'm talking about density, RM15, which is the lower half, the townhome portion, does allow up to 12 units per acre permitted outright. And then if they want to reach the 15, they have to meet certain incentive density criteria. But this proposal does not exceed that. They actually average 9 units per acre, just slightly over 9 units. So they're well under what they could do. So this is the elevations for the townhomes. All the townhomes actually are less than the maximum allowed. In the RM15, you can have up to 40-foot height buildings, and these average about 34 to 35. All of them, all the 4-plex and 5-plexes. There are 2 roof designs. This is the gable roof style, and then this is the shed roof style. Different colors, you'll see. And the elevations. The garages have the rear entrance, and then the front door is the opposite. So I'll go back to that site plan. It shows it a little better. Enlarge that a little. So you can see where there's a private drive. Yeah, right here. The entrance to vehicular entrance would be from the back through the garage, and then the pedestrian sidewalk in the front. If that makes sense. I'll show you a floor plan here in just a moment. But all of them, the units do meet the height requirements and actually are a little less than what they can do. So this is the basic floor plans. The first floor, there are three levels for the townhomes. The first floor is basically the garage and a couple smaller rooms. They vary somewhat, but they're all pretty much the same. The second floor has a kitchen and a half bath. And then the third floor is 2 or 3 bedrooms. Correct me if I'm wrong, 2 or 3 bedrooms and 1 or 2 bathrooms, depending on the floor plan. The single family homes are similar in architecture and style and color. And they have 1 garage or an option for 2-car garage. And they have staggered them. So they're not like a single row of exactly the same homes. They've kind of staggered them so it will be really complementary. This is the landscape plan that, excuse me, they have proposed. In a PUD, they are required to have a certain amenities and open space. So they have become actually really, I love this plan. Towards the west side is a detention basin, which will be part of the landscaping. In the center of the development will also be a landscaped area. And then towards the east side, over in this corner area, they have proposed to have a covered pergola and concrete patio type with barbecue and I think a bench and picnic tables, and also a little playground area. There is an existing cell tower on the far east side of the property here that will remain. This will have a fence with chain link fence and road base, and they have provided access for that cell tower because that will be continued. The use will be continued. When the zoning was changed to RM15, it made this cell tower legal non-conforming. So they can continue it as is, but if it goes away, it's gone. But anyway, the developers worked out so that they can keep that, and they've provided the access for that.
Susan, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I understand it's legal non-conforming, but it just makes me wonder, why would it be non-conforming? Only because of aesthetics to the neighborhood, or is there any safety concerns?
No, in each zone, there are certain uses, as you know, that are allowed. Some are permitted, some are conditional, and some are just not allowed at all. And in the RM15 zone, cell towers are not allowed.
And it's not because of health hazards, it's just for other reasons that. Okay.
Right. Sometimes it's, aesthetics, you don't want all these cell towers typically in the middle of a, residential mixed use, whatever. And we've just designated that as not allowed in the RM15. Any of the RM zones, actually, they're not allowed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. So this drawing here shows the areas of where there will be lawn area. For the single family homes, they are going to have lawn all around the home other than the driveway. And then the area that, again, fenced enclosure for the cell tower. This is just another example of the buffered areas. There is, I want to emphasize the 15-foot landscape area at the south, and then there will also be landscaping on the east and west that will buffer the residential areas. So they have really worked very well to accommodate that, in addition to the power utility easements, which are 60 to 70 feet. This drawing here, section, you'll know that they're up at the top, there's section AA and section BB. Those are delineated in order to show you the relation between the existing residential homes to the south and how they relate to the proposed townhomes. You can see on this one that the distance between the homes for section AA would be approximately 107 feet. And as far as the overall height, it really is not much higher than the existing homes because it does go down. The property does slump down. And then this is the section of BB further to the west. The difference in townhomes from the townhomes to the townhomes to the residential neighborhood is 92 feet approximately. And again, it does, the townhomes do not appear to be towering over the single family homes. So, also,
Do you want to talk about windows there a little bit?
yeah, I was just going to say that. So back to this, the townhomes that are adjacent to the neighborhood here, which would be the side of the townhomes. This is the elevation of the side home, the side of the townhome, and they have actually proposed to have transom windows where they're not really, you can't really see through them. It does allow natural light, but you can't really see through them. So the neighbors won't be, in the townhomes, won't be peering over the residential neighborhood. So that's another buffering that they've kind of implemented into their plans to provide a little more privacy for the adjacent neighbors. Again, it's quite a bit of separation though between the two. So yeah, so the schematic up above is in relation to the Chesterbrook Cove neighborhood to the south, as you can see there. I neglected to mention, there will be a fence around the entire project on the east, west, and south, a 6-foot white vinyl fence. And then, of course, that cell tower will have a chain link fence as specified for that particular property. And then, let's see. I just threw this in because I wanted just more of information. This property, as you know, is a former contaminated site. And Mr. Brodsky has been working with the Department of Environmental Quality and has gone into a voluntary cleanup program. And in order to do that, they have to meet a lot of criteria and regulations that are really highly regulated and very detailed. But just to give you an idea, they're proposing to have the repository for those contaminations at these locations, just highlighted in the pink and yellow. Again, that has to be approved by the DEQ. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. They've incorporated that. This is just more for your information. Initially, when the zone was changed, there was a traffic study done on Bullion Street. I'll just go back to Bullion. That indicated that Bullion Street averages 1,900 daily trips, vehicular daily trips, and that the road itself is designated to accommodate 4,000 to 6,000 average daily trips. So Bullion Street is more than adequate for this subdivision. So I think I've covered, one, parking. Let me go back to parking here. Get ahead of myself. So parking for multifamily zones does require 2.5 stalls per unit. 2 of those stalls can be enclosed, preferably in a garage, and then the other half is for visitor parking. Since there are 54 townhomes, that would minimum requirement for visitor parking is 27 stalls. They have provided for 30 stalls, and the stalls are just on the south side of the Colburn Way Road, as you can see in these areas here. So they have met and exceed that minimum requirement. And let's see if there's anything else I missed here.
Will there be parking allowed on the streets inside the this area?
Typically not, but I'll let him address that. Typically, the fire department does not like that. They don't approve that. It's usually not allowed, especially with a little bit wider, less width. That's usually not allowed. That's why we provide the visitor parking. The one change from the preliminary to, as I mentioned earlier, to the final is the connection for sidewalks. One is here, and then the other one over in this area here. So, based on the new plans and all the requirements, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission review this, and if they feel comfortable with it, that they recommend final subdivision approval for the PUD known as Bullion Place.
Can I ask 2 questions just for clarification? When you said on-street parking is not allowed, you were referring to the HOA area, not the individual single-family homes, because that's public road, correct? Correct,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the white vinyl fence around the property, were you referring to the R16 area and the RM15, or just?
Yes, the entire, so the entire west, south, and east, with exception of the cell tower location, which will have the chain link. Yes, so basically the whole development, and it will have to meet the fencing regulations as far as the height and setback from the street, etc.
Thank you.
So,
All right. Any other questions? All right. Applicant, would you like to come to the podium and state your name and address for the record, please?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for your time this evening. My name is Michael Brodsky, and I am at 84 West, 4800 South here in Murray.
And have you had an opportunity to review these 11 conditions for approval?
I have, and they will be, we're able to meet all of them comfortably.
Excellent. And would you like to provide any additional information to the staff report?
I would, thank you. First, I'd like to just talk about our timing. As I think you're aware, I have been the contract purchaser on this property, and we are now scheduled to purchase the property on December 3rd. With that closing date, we have made arrangements with your police department and your fire department to be able to use the existing building to do some training exercises. So there will be a week between the time we close on the property where they will avail themselves of that opportunity before we actually start work on the site. Ms. Nixon mentioned the trees along Bullion. We did set the houses back a little bit further than would be normal in order to recognize that there were some very mature existing trees along the street. We have surveyed them in. We will do everything that we can to preserve them. They provide some pretty significant aesthetics, and candidly, they provide value to the houses. I am telling you that we're going to make an extreme effort to save them, but I also want you to understand that with construction around them, it's not guaranteed. But we'll take every effort that we can to save as many as we can. The siting of the houses were designed to alternate. Go ahead. The siting of the houses were to alternate different elevations so that you don't have a monotone streetscape, but that you have different architectural styles next to each other. And essentially every other house along the streets will be a 2-car garage and a 3-car garage. There's some slightly different house sizes as well. The 3-car garage house is a little bit larger than the 2-car garage house. There was a question about the cell tower separation. There are safety concerns about the proximity of a cell tower to residential uses. There's 165 feet separation from the base of the cell tower to the closest house. That is designed to meet all safety requirements so that in an unlikely event that that cell tower collapses, it's well outside the being able to fall onto a house. We talked about the privacy. We recognize that the even though there is as much as 100 feet separation between our houses and the adjacent community, we asked Garbett Homes, who is the townhouse builder in here, to design the high transom windows to provide both light and privacy to both the townhouse residents and the adjacent properties. So from the top floor, you're not going to be able to look down into the yards of the adjacent homes. I did want to clarify that the parking is not permitted in the townhouse private roads, but on the public road, parking is permitted. With the 2- and 3-car garages, you have 4 parking spaces on each one of the single family lots. That's a 2-car garage, and 6 parking spaces on each of the single family homes that have a 3-car garage. We have received approval from the Utah Department of Environmental Quality for our RAP. The RAP is the Remedial Action Plan, and we have spent most of this past year doing extensive investigation of the property to understand the type of contaminants that are on the property, where they are, and designing a methodology to pick them up and safely bury them in a repository. As you saw from the plan, the repository is actually beneath the single family homes. That area is where the cell towers, I'm not cell towers, excuse me. That area is where the Albertsons communications satellite dishes are, and it is a very, very deep hole. When they constructed that building, and I can't tell you that I understand why they did it like they did, but they excavated that to a depth of 30, 40 feet. And used the borrow that came out of that site to create berms around the perimeter. we'll use that area as our repository. And I can tell you that there is a minimum separation of 6 feet from the very bottom of a footing to the top of the repository. So as that repository is being placed, it is being compacted to meet building standards to make sure that it is capable of supporting the houses that are being built on top of it. One of the precautions that we will take during the entire construction period is what's called fugitive dust monitoring, to make sure that nothing escapes the site as it is being constructed. We have monitoring devices on the perimeter of the site, but during the entire operation, there will be water trucks available to keep the dust down. Doing this work at this time of the year is also beneficial in that respect because we have a little bit more moisture now in the air, and that too will keep the dust down. The contaminants that we found are generally lead and arsenic. They are not soluble, so when they're buried, there will be a cap on top of them to prevent water from infiltrating. But regardless, because they're not soluble, they will not seep into the water table, which, by the way, is considerably deep in this area. I think those are my general comments. Hamlet Development will be building and selling the single-family homes. Garbett Homes will be building and selling the townhomes. This is not a rental community. The townhomes are intended to be sold as fee simple to owner occupants. That's not to say that somebody can't buy a townhouse and rent it. The same with the single family homes. They are intended to be sold as owner occupant homes. Any questions for me?
I have a question. The build schedule, will you be building the single family homes at the same time as you're building the condos, or what's the order of events?
First off, they're not condominiums.
Sorry, townhomes.
They're fee simple townhouses.
Sorry.
And originally the intention was because 9 of these single family homes face Bullion Street, and we would meet the building department's requirements to be able to start construction before all the development was done. We were hoping to be able to build those starting in February. A minor setback in as much as one of your conditions is that you will not grant me a record plat approval until the certificate of completion is issued by DEQ. We expect that we will be finished the cleanup by late February. And I have done 5 cleanups with DEQ, and I know how slow they are. And so that once we are 100% completed, I expect it's going to take them as much as 2 months, maybe even a little longer, to provide us with that certificate of completion. So we won't be able to start our homes until that happens. Garbett was not going to be able to start construction of their homes until we were completed the development, because the paved roads is their access to their lots. So that will not affect their schedule. The expectation is that they will probably start building around May. They have told me that they expect a pace of somewhere around 3+ homes sales a month, which will take them a little, what, 2 years? Jacob? Yeah. I have a representative here from Garbett Homes if you would like to ask him any questions about their product.
Questions? I think we're good.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is anyone here this evening to make comment regarding this agenda item? All right. Commissioners, any other discussion, or I'll entertain a motion?
I'll just make a general comment that I really appreciate the fact that you've come before us multiple times. You've met with the neighborhood. You've adjusted your project to make it more palatable to the neighbors. I really appreciate the fact that you delivered to us for the final plat what you told us you were going to deliver to us. You didn't throw a curveball at us. You didn't go back and add additional units after you had met with the citizens. So thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it.
Right. Good comment.
With that, I'm willing to make a motion.
All right.
I'd like to make a motion, the planning commission grant final subdivision approval for the Bullion Place PUD subdivision on the property address 935 West Bullion Street, subject to conditions 1 through 11.
All right. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right. A motion and a second. Any other discussion? All right. We have a vote.
Yes.
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 Yes. I know who I am. All right. Thank you. And thank you again for your patience and your good work for Murray City.
It's nice
right.
you're letting the police and fire play too. Yes.
We'll come and watch that. All right. Our agenda item number 6, another subdivision review. This is a request for preliminary and final plat or flag lot subdivision approval for the property in the R110 zone located at 1776 East Vine Street, and is the applicant for that property here. Okay, great. We'll have you come up in a little bit.
Okay.
And Jared Hall will give us a staff report.
Thank you. This is, as you said, an application for flag lot subdivision. The property is at 1776 East Vine Street. You can see there's an existing house there, and then the back lot portion is where the flag lot would be created. So the front home would have access on the Vine Street. The rear home would have access here to Carriage Park Circle by way of this 20-foot wide property that we'll talk about a little more in just a moment. The property, as you said, is zoned R110. That's 10,000 square feet per lot as a minimum. I think I went over the setbacks that are required in your packets, in your reports. This isn't quite like the subdivision we were just reviewing, where you can see exactly what each home is going to have for setbacks, but we do have looked at it to make sure that there's enough land available to meet setbacks that are generally required. We don't see any issues with that here. The Afton England 2-lot subdivision looks a bit like this. You can see the existing home on the front, the rear lot in the rear lot in back. That's a little redundant, but there you go. The rear lot to the south with that extending pole to Carriage Park Circle. I just zoomed in on it a little bit here so you can see that a little better. Again, this is where the home would be placed, on the main part of that lot, and the stem portion would just be for access, drive access to the home. These lots, this existing lot, dates back into the 90s during the construction or during the recording of the Carriage Park subdivision, and that 20-foot easement, or that 20-foot piece of property that creates that drive access, was a part of that subdivision as well. I took a snip from that subdivision to put it here to show you that dates back to that era. This is the existing property matching up to that plat work there. It was always anticipated that would be the case, that it would serve that. It was annexed into Murray City. Our requirements for flag lots are different than the county's. The county required 20 feet. We require 28 feet. The additional 8 feet is for 4 feet of 4 feet of landscaping on either side to provide a buffer from the driveway to the adjacent properties in case they have a driveway there or something like that. In this case, the 20 feet is for pavement. That's hard surface to provide emergency access and make sure that it's safe as a driveway. I've just included that section from the code and the flag lot subdivision ordinance that requires that 28 feet. The applicants prior to this application for subdivision made a petition to the hearing officer to get a variance from the 28 feet to 20 feet. That was successful. I think I included the findings from the hearing officer in your report. That happened in August of this year. One other thing to be aware of, flag lot subdivision rules require that the rear lot or the flag lot be 125% of the requirement of the zone. 10,000 square feet in the zone, that's a 12,500 square foot lot. the applicant's lot area for the rear lot is over 15,000 square feet. 13,000 square feet of that excludes that 20 feet of access. And that's the requirement, 12,500 square feet for that flag portion of the lot, the main body of the lot. It does meet those requirements, and that's what we're most concerned with. Couple of pictures just to show you so we can talk about that. This is the existing home on Vine Street. You can see that would maintain its driveway to the rear and be accessed from Vine Street. And then this is the area in the rear where that drive access lot comes out to Carriage Park Circle. Just a shot over the fence to show that it's been used in the past, but not heavily. This would be its debut as a use as a true driveway serving a single family lot.
Can I ask you a question on this
Sure.
picture? Where is the encroachment taking place?
Right. So on this side, see that the pine tree that you can see right there?
Okay.
This fence is not set at 20 feet. That was one of the issues that we included the letter in your staff report. That's the issue of contention there. The fence wasn't placed at the 20-foot mark. The plat work and survey work all shows very clearly the 20 feet, but the fence has been placed at about 16 feet of width, making a discrepancy of just about 4 feet on that east side. Let me see if I can. Again, it's
Mr. Holt,
it's along this line here.
And does that fence run the whole length of the easement 4 feet in, or is it just the front?
No,
section?
it changes a little bit actually further in. I don't know what the width is. Well, the width is 20 feet all the way. Where the fence's location is, I know, is about 16 feet up there near Carriage Park Circle. Thank you. Good questions. So with that in mind, we do, as a staff, find that it meets the requirements for flag lot subdivision for the 125% of the lot. And with the variance in place, the 20-foot width should be sufficient. It can easily accommodate the setbacks that are required in the R110 zone. And we do recommend that the Planning Commission approve the flag lot subdivision subject to these 6 conditions. Do you have any questions for staff at this point?
Questions? Okay, thank you. Would the applicant come up, please, and state your name and your address for the record?
Yes, my name is Alex Butterfield. I live at 1776 East Vine Street. And I'm just here to carry out what has been planned since 1991. This lot has been in the family since then. They originally sold off the back half to the Carriage Park Circle developers for a small amount of money and a flag lot with access to Carriage Park Circle. This was approved in 1991 for that subdivision as part of that original agreement. It was again approved by Salt Lake County in 2003. When my parents built just to the east of that lot, you can see how there was another old farm lot that was long and skinny. We did that at the same time. This one just didn't get recorded, so we're here for final approval and for the recording of the flag lot.
Have you had an opportunity to review the conditions for recommendation? Can you get
Yes.
those? Okay. And will you be able to comply with all of those?
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else that you'd like to tell us?
No, that's it. Any questions for me?
Questions? No? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. I will open this item for public comment. If you come up to the podium, please, and state your name and your address for the record.
Hey, Jennifer Fuller. I live at 6154 South Carriage Park Circle. And when we came here last time, I showed these pictures. I can bring them over if you guys want to see it closer. This shows kind of how that fence, like he was saying, was 16 feet at the opening, and it kind of carries over into our front side yard there. Do you want me to bring them over or no? Okay.
We're good.
So after the last meeting, I had some concerns about whether we might have an issue of a boundary by acquiescence or prescriptive easement. And I consulted with an attorney, and you have the letter that was initially sent in. And so basically, sorry, I hate speaking in front of people. My attorney has researched everything, and she's helped me to realize that under Utah law, we own that property that by boundary of acquiescence that's in our yard based on that fence. I was able to talk to the prior owner, and the fence has been in that place since prior to 2001 when he bought the house, and we bought the house in 2015. So over 20 years. I have a Utah case on point. It's Q2 versus Hughes. I can have it here if you want a copy of it, but it's a case similar, showing a similar situation to ours. But basically, we haven't consented or come to an agreement with the applicant for anything to happen with the property. I've tried multiple times to talk to him. He came to our house and talked to my husband and I. We tried to arrange a meeting with the prospective buyer to talk about things so that we could come to an agreement and help things to be able to move forward. Sent him multiple messages. He wasn't able to respond to me. So I've tried multiple times to communicate. We're not getting communication. So basically, I've consulted my attorney. We're preparing to bring a lawsuit, to court to confirm that we own a portion of the property. And, feel we need to do that to protect our personal interest in our property. And because these are ongoing issues, we feel like the application, approving it right now would be premature, that, we'd ask maybe that you stay the approval of this so that we can reach either an agreement or the court can make a decision.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
Anyone else like to speak to this topic?
Yes, just briefly. My name's Randy Koch. I'm your applicant's attorney. I'm with Nagar Koch and Vincent, been their managing partner the last 15 years. I spoke with the third attorney involved in this today. I wholly disagree with the legal conclusions they've made. I've spoken with the owner that owned the property with the original owners after Carriage Park. It was Afton and Glade, England, and a man named Stan Wright. He will testify if and when necessary that an arrangement was made to save that pine tree on a temporary basis. An accommodation was made to jog a fence around that until the property was ultimately developed and the flag lot finalized. So there's never been any possible way to prove an adverse possession unless there is a mutual agreement it is the line, which isn't true, or it's adverse by prescriptive right, which means against the ownership interest. And when you allow someone to use your property and to jog a fence with your permission, you can't assert a boundary by acquiescence. It's about 16, it's the last 16 feet of the fence. And you'll notice the jog right at the pine tree. And it was originally done on the other side to accommodate the other neighbor, which has since resolved over the years. But Mr. Wright was a co-owner of the property. He, in fact, is the one that sold the property to your applicant. And he's fully aware of what this arrangement was back in the early 90s, long before the Fullers bought this property. And that's been the arrangement since soon after they acquired it in 91. So I'd just like to relay that. And if there's going to be a lawsuit filed, it'll be defended vigorously. And I believe it's a private matter, as pointed out, I believe, by Mr. Hall.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this topic item?
My name's Peter Cornish, and I live at 6134 Carriage Park Circle. And I just would like to say that I think this situation, as far as, I'm not legal, but based on where that fence is, the variance doesn't make sense because there's not 20 feet. So it's not safe based on anyone's rules. So I don't think it's the mistake of anyone in this room that this has happened, but I think it's absolutely ludicrous that we get attorneys involved. I don't understand why the Butterfields haven't been talking with the Fullers. And I just think it sets a bad precedent for the neighborhood. It's just a crazy situation, and it's childish. So that's my comment.
All right. Thank you very much. Anyone else?
My instructions, by the way, counsel. I would never let a client talk to someone that's threatened to sue them. So if somebody wants to be blamed here, it's myself.
Yeah, we'll talk about this a little bit more when we finish the public comment. So thank you.
My name is Rick Butterfield. I built the home in 2003 adjacent to the England property. Mine's the Allen two-lot subdivision property. So in 2003, I did all the surveying, I did the subdividing. We did everything but record it because Afton England was alive and she was on a fixed income, didn't want to pay 2 property taxes, and everything was set the way that it is now. It just needs to be recorded and completed. Peter, you had a good comment. The reason why it's gotten to this point is not because of the Butterfields. At the beginning, we went to the variance meeting. Not one neighbor communicated with us and had a coup against us, which is fine. That's understandable. Everybody has a point of interest. That was step 1. Step 2 is a law attorney paper with a summary of what they believe is their rights, which is understandable. It doesn't make it law. It makes it a point of interest, a summary of what they believe. We're talking about a fence line around a tree to save a tree that they've enjoyed this whole time, the whole neighborhood has. But those fences will be gone for visibility of a driveway. That fence along the Fullers back 25 feet will be gone. So that's not even an issue. The property line in the concrete curbing is staked at the time of development to make this a landmark. Nothing's changed from the developer. So in 91, it was developed. The land was sold from the Englands to the developer in promise that this would be a lot. It's always been a lot. Now, all the neighbors all these years have used this subdivision and it's been open place. But this day is now here. It's going to be improved as a lot. There's value there. To take that value away from anybody for desires of your own interests without paying for it, I don't think is fair or an agreement. So, Peter, it's all based on what's been acted upon this movement to fulfill an agreement in 1991 to a private owner. That's what this, there wouldn't even be a Carriage Park subdivision without the Englands or the Allen property. So this is just finishing what they were promised when they sold to the developer. It's lot 15A for this one. Mine was lot 13A. So I went through the same step in 2003. It's been a beautiful neighborhood. I love the neighborhood. This is the first issue I've seen in our neighborhood. And I understand that there's changes and changes are uncomfortable. But to the point of attorneys, the point of not communicating originally, that's, and then we follow the counsel of an attorney just to protect the interest of where it's going to make sure that right is right. So any questions? But we just are excited to see it fulfilled. I think it's the best for the neighborhood. It's going to clean up this open lot that's been there since way before 1991. I remember as a kid, it was horses forever. But anyway, it'll clean it up. It'll make it nice. It'll be a nice homeowner. It'll be that access. You can see that entrance is really an eyesore for those homes that look down it. That'll all be cleaned up. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Good evening. I'm Mike Katsanevis. I reside at 1798 Carriage Park Circle. This is a little bit odd for me. For 10 years, I sat up there with for the city of South Salt Lake. For 9.5 of those 10, I was the chair. So this is a little bit different for me. In fact, you guys got a great guy from us. I got to tell you, Jared was rocking, but I don't blame him. Fortunately, now he's in my city, so it's a good thing.
We like him.
So get him a raise. Regarding the preliminary and the final lot subdivision, the approval, yeah, based off my experience, my knowledge, this meets the criteria. I feel bad for our community, the community of neighbors that we have. This has gone too far, but the law is the law, and it meets all state and city ordinances and requirements. If you're giving me a choice between having a pine tree and a family with children and life, I'm taking the life and the children. This is a no-brainer. It does meet all the criteria. The Butterfields have been very communicative. I've had questions for them. They've answered them. I've reached out to the city on a couple matters regarding this. I don't have any issues. I have no concerns. This is pretty straightforward. And after 10 years, I realize things change, but not that much. Any questions for me?
Questions? Thank you very much.
Folks, thank you.
Any other comments? Do we have any other comments? Sure. Yes. Do you have any other comments from previous and or streaming? Okay. All right, please.
Yeah, just Peter Cornish back again. I'd just like to say to you, Rick, that you guys initiated this project. You said that we didn't communicate. You didn't communicate to us before we found out there was a variance request. I'm not concerned about the fact of splitting the lots. I'm concerned about the situation that we've got these guys, through no fault of their own, in a situation where they're losing land. And in that case, because of the fence, you said yourself the fence will get moved. Is that accurate?
Well, we're not going to have a debate in here. If you want to make some additional comments, we'll put those into the record. But
Rick said, so the question, I think the question there is, who pays to get the fence moved? Okay, and the sprinkler systems and everything else associated.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close public comment, and you like to answer any other questions, Jared?
Let me just really quickly. The only thing I didn't really hear any, or I'll let Bryant probably do, because Bryant could probably say what I was going to say better than me. So there aren't any real issues of related to the subdivision rules. I think, as everyone really expressed, that I would need to address again. So it would really just be for Bryant for you.
And Bryant, you'll have to introduce yourself. I failed to introduce you at the beginning of the meeting.
I was a little late. So I'm Bryant Farnsworth. I'm the Deputy City Attorney. I think most of the comments here have been off topic and on the wrong issue. You are to look at the application and the ordinance to see if it complies. We look at the application as it is given, as it is, the affidavit is given as far as the property owner's affidavit. You take that at face value. There's no investigation that the Planning Commission does into that. You look at what is given to you, what it's on the plats, what staff has shown as far as their research, and you make a decision based on that application. You are not in a position to rule, give an opinion on any sort of private land disputes. So property line disputes, prescriptive easements, that's not something you can really delve into. So I believe one of the comments that did seem to mention this correctly is that a prescriptive easement, a boundary adjustment, or boundary by acquiescence, those are claims. You don't have a prescriptive easement unless a judge tells you you do. So that's a claim that you have. That's not something the Planning Commission rules on. You don't have the power to determine whether there's a prescriptive easement or not. By taking a side, by making a decision or an opinion on private land disputes, that can get the Planning Commission into a little bit of trouble. And so I just wanted to make you aware that that's where we are on this, to look at the application and you're not you're not a judicial body that rules on whether there's a property ownership interest. So are there any questions for me?
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I'd reiterate that the Planning Commission, unfortunately, there are lawyers already involved, attorneys already involved, which will have to take place outside of this room, outside of the city offices that we can't help with. So the neighbors are going to have to determine that by themselves. So with that, ask the commissioners if you have any additional discussion that you'd like to present.
I'll just make the comment that if we think a single flag lot is going to destroy the integrity of a neighborhood, it's hard for me to swallow when we just put in 54 townhomes and 20 homes in the middle of a neighborhood. You know, we have to look at these issues as something that we either believe that we should be taking property like this and building additional homes on it, or we don't believe in that. And in this setting, I personally think that we're making a good call by moving forward with this application.
Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion.
All right, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move that we make a motion to approve a flag lot subdivision for the Afton England 2-lot subdivision located at 1776 East Vine Street, subject to conditions 1 through 6.
And is there a second?
I will second that.
All right, a motion and a second. So Jared, could you do a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Milkevich?
Yes.
Mr. Nay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I'd make last comment to the neighborhoods. So what we've done is we voted on what we can do as a council, as a commission. And other than that, unfortunately, yes, we may have to go with our attorneys to resolve lot line and determine where that comes out. So I appreciate all your comments. Neighborhoods in Murray are wonderful places, and I look forward to seeing how you resolve this. So that was our last formal piece of business. Are there any other items for the council?
Just
Excuse
really,
me, commission?
just really quickly, a reminder that I don't know if it's a reminder or an announcement to you that we're canceling the December 2nd Planning Commission meeting. We don't have any items for that agenda. That's a long. It's like ghosts of Christmas past seeing Mr. Katzenavas here tonight, because last meeting I was at with Mike went to like 11:45 or something like those. Yeah. So, and we're canceling the second. We do have items for December 16th. So we'll see you that night. And then just a quick reminder too, that'll be Sue's last night on the commission. So we'll plan a little.
She didn't renew.
Soiree.
I didn't know she didn't renew.
She's going to be resigning from the commission to take care of Larry. Some things. So
sorry to hear that, Sue.
Yep. So we're hoping she's going to be able to be there for that night, and we'll have a little soiree to say goodbye. So
good.
Right.
Anything else, commissioners?
No.
All right. I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn at 7:49.
Second?
Second.
All right. All in favor? We're adjourned.